The morning air over the city was heavy with the scent of rain and exhaust, and the streets were already alive with the sound of horns and rushing footsteps as Lian moved carefully through the marble lobby of the Aurora Tower. She kept her head low, her hair tied back, her eyes scanning the reflections in the polished floor. The building was home to the wealthy and powerful, and she was only there to clean, to sweep and polish and disappear before anyone noticed her presence. But lately, she had noticed things that made her uneasy. Quiet exchanges between the security men, sharp looks that passed between them, words she could not understand. But she had heard enough of their tones to sense that something was not right. Lian had grown up in Guangzhou before moving to the city 3 years ago, and she knew the sound of her own language well, but the way the guards spoke, it was rough, urgent, filled with hidden meaning. The man they were assigned to protect was Mr. Elliot Cross, a millionaire, known for his real estate empire and his habit of showing off his wealth. He was polite enough when he passed Lian in the hallway, offering a distracted nod before returning to his phone. But his guards were different. They watched everything and everyone. They stayed too close to him even when he was supposed to be safe in his penthouse. Lian had begun to pick up fragments of their conversations in Chinese. They spoke about waiting, about the right moment, about a deal that would be done. Once the car arrived, she could not tell if they were planning something against him or for him, but her stomach tightened each time she heard them whisper. The elevator doors opened, and Mr. Cross stepped out, dressed in his gray suit, his hair slicked back, his eyes hidden behind dark glasses. He spoke briefly to his assistant before turning to the guards. They nodded silently, and one of them pressed a hand to his earpiece. Lian froze behind her cleaning cart, pretending to wipe the floor as she listened. The guards spoke again in Chinese. One said, "He will not suspect a thing." The other answered, "Once we reach the tunnel, it will be finished." She felt her breath catch in her throat. She looked up and saw the reflection of Mr. Cross in the glass. Doctor walking toward the waiting car. The black sedan idling at the curb, rain beginning to fall in soft silver streaks. She wanted to ignore it, to tell herself it was none of her business, that she was only a cleaner, but something deep inside her refused to stay silent. She thought of her brother, who had vanished after getting involved with men who spoke in the same tone, who made the same promises. She pushed the cleaning cart aside and walked quickly toward the lobby entrance, her heart beating fast in her chest. She heard one of the guards laugh behind her, low and sharp, and it sounded too much like a warning. Mr. Cross was just reaching for the car door when she called out, her voice trembling but firm. "Sir, please don't get in the car." He turned sharply, surprised, his hand still on the door handle. The guards froze, their faces hardening. She could feel their eyes on her. She repeated herself louder this time. "Please, sir, something is wrong. Don't get in the car." He frowned, confused and annoyed, but something in her tone made him pause, made him look at her closely for the first time, and for a second there was only the sound of rain and the distant hum of traffic before everything began to shift. The moment hung between them, heavy and uncertain as the rain grew stronger and the city seemed to fade into a blur of gray sound and motion. Lian stood there, drenched, her hands trembling, as Mr. Cross stared at her. The guards shifted uneasily. One of them muttered something under his breath in Chinese, asking what she thought she was doing. She understood every word, and it only confirmed her fear. She stepped closer to Mr. Cross, her eyes wide, pleading with him to listen. She told him again quietly, this time, that she had heard the guards speaking in Chinese, that they were planning something dangerous. She said she did not know exactly what, but she could feel that he was in danger. The older of the two guards barked at her to move away, his tone sharp, his hand moving toward his jacket as if to reach for something hidden. Mr. Cross raised his hand, stopping him, his voice calm but firm. He asked what she meant and how she knew. She looked at him, her clothes clinging to her skin, her face pale and wet, and said that she was from Guangzhou, that she spoke the language, and that she had heard enough to know he should not get in that car. He hesitated, his mind racing. He had always trusted his security team, but there was something about the way the guards' eyes flickered that made him uneasy. He turned to the driver. The same driver who had worked for him for 5 years and noticed for the first time that the man would not meet his gaze. The guards exchanged another quick phrase in Chinese too fast for him to catch, but Lian caught it and whispered, "Don't move. They are waiting for the signal." A siren wailed somewhere in the distance as if the city itself were warning them. The tension broke when the younger guard suddenly grabbed her arm, yanking her backward. She gasped in pain, but before she could cry out, Mr. Cross stepped forward, shouting for him to stop. The driver started the car, and the engine roared, but Lian twisted free and screamed, "Don't let him go. It's a trap." The words echoed off the glass walls of the lobby, and in that instant, the older guard lunged toward Mr. Cross. But the movement was clumsy too, desperate, and Mr. Cross instinctively dodged to the side. The man stumbled, his jacket flying open, revealing a black pistol strapped beneath it. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Mr. Cross shouted to the front desk to call security. His voice cracking through the chaos, the guards tried to recover, but the building guards arrived within moments. Weapons drawn, the two imposters froze. Caught between escape and surrender, one tried to run but slipped on the wet floor and fell hard. His gun skidding across the tiles, the other raised his hands, muttering curses in Chinese. Lian stood shaking in the corner, her heart pounding so loud she could barely hear the voices around her. Mr. Cross approached her carefully, his expression a mix of confusion and shock. He asked her how she had known, how she had dared to speak up. She could barely answer the words stuck in her throat, she said. Only that she had heard them planning, that she could not walk away and pretend it was nothing. The police arrived soon after taking the guards into custody and leading them out through the rain. The driver went too silent and pale, his eyes darting toward Lian as he passed. When the chaos settled, the lobby was quiet again, the storm outside beginning to fade. Mr. Cross turned to Lian and said, "You saved my life." But she only shook her head and said softly that she had only done what anyone should do, though she knew deep down that most would not have dared. The city lights flickered in the puddles at their feet, and for the first time in a long while, she felt both terrified and alive. The next day, the city returned to its usual rhythm of noise and motion, but for Lian, nothing felt the same. She could still hear the echo of the guards' voices in her mind, the sharp tones of their words, and the cold way they had looked at her when she spoke up. The police had questioned her for hours, asking her to repeat everything she had heard, every sound, every detail she remembered. She had told them about the whispers about the tunnel and about how one of the men had said it would be finished once they reached it. The officers nodded, writing it all down, saying it matched what they had found out later that night. They told her the guards were part of a criminal ring that had been planning to kidnap Mr. Cross and force him to sign over ownership of several offshore accounts. She felt sick hearing it and thought of how close he had come to stepping into that car, never realizing what waited for him beyond the glass doors. When she returned to her small apartment that evening, the city lights glowed through the thin curtains. She sat on her bed, staring at the floor, thinking of everything that had happened. She was proud but also frightened. She had lived quietly for years, avoiding attention, keeping her head down, and now suddenly everyone wanted to talk to her. Reporters had come by her building asking for interviews. Strangers called her brave and even heroic. But she felt uneasy. She had not done it for fame. She had done it because her instincts had told her something terrible was coming, and she had listened. The memory of her brother haunted her again. His disappearance, the silence that followed. She whispered a prayer for him, hoping he might somehow know she had tried to do the right thing. 2 days later, Mr. Cross invited her to meet him in his office at the top of the Aurora Tower. She hesitated at first, but finally agreed. She took the elevator up to the 52nd floor, the same one she had once only cleaned, and when the doors opened, she was greeted by the man whose life she had saved. He stood By the window looking out over the skyline, the city sprawling beneath him. When he turned to her, his face was softer than she remembered. He thanked her again and said that without her courage, he would be dead. He offered her a position working, directly for his company, not as a cleaner, but as part of his personal staff. She was stunned, unable to speak. He told her that he wanted people he could trust around him, and that he believed she had proven herself more than anyone else. She thought about it for a long moment, then said quietly that she was grateful, but unsure if she belonged in such a world. He smiled and said that perhaps belonging was something that could change with time. She accepted finally, her voice trembling slightly. The storm that had once threatened now seemed far away, and the city beyond the glass looked almost peaceful again.